Welcome back to this clown's garage. Welcome back to this clown's garage. In this video we have Project Shitstain back, and this is an 85 Mercury Marquis, and we're putting a Ford 9-inch in this bad boy. I'm gonna put the link in the description below. We did an LS swap with a T56 swap in this car. So the last thing we need to do is put a 9-inch in the back to make it complete. And we got a 9-inch from Quick Performance. Our friends over at Quick Performance sent us this. We got the axles, pumpkins over there. That's the brake setup, and we also have copper nickel lines from the stop shop. So let's begin. First thing to do is take the tires off.
Hey Clanza, why is there a crab leg on there?
Mind your business, Brianna.
Okay.
Now this is the main brake line that goes to the rear end. I have a crescent wrench on one end, and I have a 7/16 flared wrench on the other. This is kind of old and crusty, so I did spray it with some some acetone and tranny fluid, my favorite butter sauce, next to Croil, and hopefully it'll come apart. If not, we might have to make new brake lines here. So let's see what's gonna happen. Oh!
Wow, Clam.
Oh wait, it's turning with the brake line.
Oh
So,
no.
oh no, I think we got it. It's not turning with the brake line, it's free. Woo! I think we're good, Brianna.
Oh wow.
Alright, so as you can see, it's free. What I like to do is I use a flare wrench to break this loose so it doesn't strip it. And afterwards you could just use a little adjustable if it's cracked in here, because you're not going to strip it afterwards once it's loose. So I'll go ahead and take this off. Take this clip off. So this thing here is rusted on top of this bracket that's holding it together. It's not coming off. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take the whole bracket off. And once I take this bracket off, it's going to come down with the rear end. So we can actually mess with that off the car. So we're going to take this bracket off now. There you go. Now for the drive shaft, put a 12-point socket on there. That's a 12mm. Take those off. And it's not happening. Now we put a breaker bar on it. Yeah, baby. And the car's in gear, of course. And if the drive shaft turns, you can just put a pry bar in there and have your sexy assistant hold it.
Oh yeah.
While you crack the other ones loose. Oh yeah. Woo! So these 3 bolts are off. This is the last one. And now we can use a pry bar to take this off. Just like that. And hopefully this comes out. Alright, so I cleared this over here. Now, the back of the transmission, you're going to see that slip yoke, that rod over here slip out of that back of that tranny. So let's go yank it out. And it's coming out. There it is. I just have to maneuver it through these mufflers. Ah, there it is. Woo! And bang everything out. Bang everything on the way out. Now I'll put this butt plug in here. Just so it doesn't leak, but it's not going to leak anyway. So I put a tranny jack underneath the rear end now. So just to hold it in place. And over here we're going to take the shocks off. And now the other side. Now for these upper arms, that's 18mm. I have an 18mm open on the other side. Go ahead and take that off. Alright, so I jacked up a little bit. I put a pin on the other side. Now I'm going to hammer this bolt out. Oh, baby!
Hit it with my purse, clown.
There you go. Now the other side. I'm going to put a pry bar here and pry it out. Sometimes when you do this, it strips the threads. You could put a die on it to fix them, or just get new bolts. We might get new bolts, we're not sure yet, but in any case, it's not a big deal if we strip the threads here. It's out. Now the lower control arms. These are 3/4 inch nut and bolts here. Try to knock this out. Alright, so I got this little nifty tool from Astro, part number 78415. I'll put a link in the description below. It's on Amazon. And it comes with a vice grip and a slap hammer at the end of it. You can pull stubborn bolts out like this out. So let's see what happens here. Yeah, baby!
Whoa, wow, what a tool.
Who's your clown daddy?
Oh, wow.
Now you can take the springs out. Now do the other side. Now if you noticed, I put the nut on here before because you don't want to mess up the threads over here when you're hammering it. So now when it's almost flush, you can put the pin on it. And there she is. Now you can take this rear spring out. Alright, so last thing that's holding this in place is the e-brake cable. We have new e-brake cables, so I'm just going to cut the stock one that's over here. I'll take it off here. And same thing on the other side. And just slide that out of here. Over here. Let's do the same thing. So that cable's out. Same thing on this side. And there you go. Now that the rear end is completely free from the car, we could lower it slowly. Pull it back, then lower it all the way. Some more. Slowly clearing everything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow, look at that. That's amazing.
And that's all she wrote, folks. There we go. And now it's off. And now it's off this brake line. So I can put this bracket on the car again. Alright, so I'm just going to blow some compressed air on this 9-inch housing, just so if there's anything in there, it'll come out. And I'm also going to put some brake cleaner and clean it up in there. Alright, so I already put these studs in here. This is the last stud I got to put in here. They supply you with these studs. So what you got to do is you got to put this back through here. I'm not going to use this because it's got a lock nut, a plastic locking thing at the end of this. So I'm just going to use, they also give you these bolts here. So they come with their own nuts. I'm going to use that. These are M10s 1.0s, I believe. So you could go and buy grade 8 ones if you wish. And just put that in there. Tighten that down and press that in. Go ahead and do that now. I think that's it. And these are all in now. I'm going to put some ultra grade Permatex all around the gasket mating area. I'm going to put no gasket on this, just this. That's enough. They also sell, Permatex also makes this specifically for rear end. You could use that also. I also blew this out with compressed air because after you put the studs in, you might get some metal shards in here. So that's a good idea too. Just go ahead and go around with this now. Put a nice bead all around. And she's done. Now we're going to put this on. My assistant's going to hold this while I try to slide this on. Catch the first. Oh yeah. Almost on. Get the rubber mallet now just to whack it on. Okay.
Fisting falls.
There you go.
Okay.
There we go. Got it, baby. Now they're all in. Okay, now that we started the nuts on these, you could just tighten them down to drive this down further in. This should be torqued down to about 35 foot-pounds. So right now I'm just gonna go like back and forth like a star pattern just to tighten this down to get it to mate. Alright, so we snugged down all the nuts. Now I'm gonna go down to 35 foot-pounds on all of them. For the bottom two bolts, you can't really put a socket on it to torque it. So I'm using a crow foot with an extension. Whoops, it fell off. To torque that down. And the last one. And what I do, whenever I torque a nut down, I put a white marker at the head of the bolt, at the head of the stud, just so I know that I did that one. And these are all done. Alright, we're putting the rear in. We're going to slide this in first. There you go.
And the bolt's in, everybody. It's an amazing thing.
So I took a pry bar and I wedged this in. Now it's gonna kind of hammer it in place. You holding that? It's gotta go forward. Just gotta play around with this. Ah, there it is. Put a little pry bar in here. Pry this up.
Yeah, man, it looks like it's lined up.
It's almost lined up. There we go. Yeah, baby. Woo! She's in. Alright, so I already did on this side. Put the springs in. just lay them in there. So when we're ready to put them in, they just slide in place. So the springs are in. We jacked up the rear end a little higher, and now they're in place. And now we're going to try to put the top arms in. There you go. Nice. That's my girl right there, Rihanna.
You like that, Clan? I wield a big red hammer sometimes.
Woohoo!
Wow.
She's in, baby. Who's your clown daddy?
That looks amazing.
Now this other side. There you go. Woo!
I can't believe it.
There you go.
Wow.
Alright, so now we're just going to tighten down the lower control arms and the top control arms. And we can also put these in too, actually. Everything's loose, so we'll just jack it up a little bit now and pop the shocks in while we're at it. Almost!
Oh, wow.
Almost there, Brianna. The hole's right there.
Woo! Baby. Wow.
The money shot. We're in.
Pumping.
Woo! This one's in too. Okay, so everything's loose. Let's go ahead and tighten everything down. Okay, so everything is tight. The control arm's on top, the control arm's on the bottom, and the shocks. The rear end is in. Now we're gonna sand down the whole rear end with this. And once we're finished sanding it, we're gonna use some mineral spirits to clean everything up. Then once that's done, we're just gonna paint on some Rust-Oleum paint so it won't rust. Rub it down, baby, rub it down. Alright, now we're just gonna use the mineral spirits. And again, we're not going crazy here. We just don't want any rust to develop. So just gonna clean everything up. Alright, so we're just using a paintbrush and paint her up. And there she is, folks. Nice and painted. So we have two axles here we're gonna put in. One's longer than the other. One's 30 inches and the other's 27 inches and some change. The longer one goes on the passenger side. They also gave you a seal. And there's a sealed bearing here. And there's a little spacer ring over here. So we're going to go ahead and install this. Okay, so in order to prevent leaks here, we're going to put the seal in and we're going to put some ultra gray on here for Permatex. I'm also going to put a little bit of rear end lube on here, some butter sauce. And also on the bearing, I'm gonna put some ultra gray on the outside of the race of the bearing and put it over here. The first thing I'm going to do so this silicone adheres to this axle housing is I'm going to sand it down a little bit where the axle seal goes and where the bearing, the outside of the bearing seats. I'm just going to go ahead and scuff it up just a little bit. Alright, now the silicone has somewhere to adhere to. So you clean that up with some brake cleaner. What the hell is this? What the hell's going on over here?
Oh yeah, Clan, what the hell?
Nose. Oh god. Okay, now put a little bit of ultra gray on the outside of the seal. Just gonna go ahead and lather that up with my hand. Alright, that's done. Okay, so some ultra gray, put where the seal is going to sit. Just a light film, light coat. Alright, now I have a seal driver. So I'm going to place this in by hand first and drive that bad boy in. You go use a socket here and punch that in. And you can hear that. It makes different noise when it fully seats. So we're good. Now I'm just going to put a little gear lube on the inner lip of this seal. And the seal's done. Now put some silicone, some RTV where the bearing's going to sit. Let's go lather that up. If you're really talented, you can use a couple of fingers here.
Oh, wow, Clem.
That's right, you heard it here first, folks. And now the face on the outside of the race, lather that up with some RTV. Now, before I put the axle in, I just put T-bolts in through here. And now put the backing plate in. Make sure the caliper mounting bracket is on this side in the back. Okay, now put the axle in. And as you're putting it in, make sure you push up on the end of it and push it into the pumpkin. The splines have to go into the pumpkin. There you go. And now hammer that baby in. And hammer her home. She's good. Now put the retaining plate in. Now this retaining plate should go outside of the retaining ring, the spacer ring, sorry. And the bolt holes go through here. The bolts go through the bolt holes. So I had a helper. What he did was he held the top two bolts in, and I had a flathead on one side and a magnet on the other, and just put the retaining plate up into the two bolts on top. I used a magnet to put the washer on there. Now a piece of paper towel here. I stuck that into the socket. So put that in here. I'm just going to catch this one bolt a little bit. Okay. So that's on there. Now what you do here is you could use an extension here to move this over. So you could grab the other one, put the washer on there, put the magnet, put the finger on there, hold it in place, and then just put the nut on that and catch the other ones underneath. Now for the bottom two bolts, you can have them backed out a little bit. You just push those in, and they should line up with the holes underneath, and just tighten that down. Also, one more thing, the spacer ring in the back, try to have it as center as possible. It doesn't have to be too center, but as long as it's kind of center, you're fine. So go ahead and just tighten up the bottoms now. A good method I found to keep the spacer ring in the back centered is just have a screwdriver underneath pushing it up while you're tightening it down, and then hold it in place. And now tighten this down to 35 foot-pounds. Do the star pattern. And the last one to 35 foot-pounds. And you're good. Alright, now I'm just going to put the rotor on backwards. Tighten this down a little bit. And I'm just going to clean this with brake cleaner. And wipe down the rotor. Same thing on the other side. Also, don't forget to clean the inside with the e-brake. Connects over there, hits the rotor. I'll put some fluid film on the face of this axle here, just so it doesn't rust. Alright, so now when you look down here, this adjuster, we're going to adjust this so the e-brake pads are out a little bit and snug when you put the rotor on and off. When you go up with it, it opens up the pads and that's what you want. So I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna go up a little bit and try out and test fit the rotor and see what happens. Let's try it now. So it's got a little bit of interference, not much. It still needs more. Let's try it again. As you can see, it's got a little bit of resistance. That's ideal. That's where you want it. If you go too much, you can't put it down. It's really hard to take off. Just back it off a little bit. So that's good. Okay, now that you're adjusted, the last thing I like to do here is put some fluid film on these threads, just so this doesn't seize up. You can adjust it later if need be. And be careful, just wipe down any excess. Now you go ahead and put the rotor back on. Now with the brakes, we're going to lube up the slide pins with some silicone paste, and we're going to put some Permatex Silicone Ceramic Extreme on the points on the brake pads where they slide back and forth. Also on the back of the brake pads. So let me take this brake pad off here now. Just knock this off. I also noticed this slides back and forth very freely, so I'm just going to open up these things back here to get more of a grip. And as you can see, that's much better. Now also I'm going to put some of this in the back of the pad. Real quick. Face of this piston, and pop that in. Put some over here and put that pad back on. Start it and grab a pair of channel locks and just squeeze it down. Now over here, pop the slide pins out and put some silicone lube on here and put them back in. Push that in. Woo! She's in, baby. All lubed up too. And grab the other side. And you're good. And I lubed up this side too. Pop this in. And ready to put it in the car. Put some of the ceramic extreme on here too. That's where the brake pads go back and forth, so I could slide on top over here too. And I'm holding the rotor in place with a lug nut. Okay, now push the slide pins out that way. Install the top pads in first. Go ahead and do that. Just like that. And she's in, folks. Now put the bolts in and finagle that in there and just tighten that down. Those are 12mm bolts for the slide pins. That's tight. And that's tight. And caliper's on. Alright, so we got a new brake hose. And this is a brake hose that for the actual car. And I got new fittings here for inverted flares for 3/16 lines, and that's what we got from the Stop Shop, a 3/16 copper nickel line. And these are the brake hoses. We just went into the back of AutoZone to see the stockpile of brake hoses, and we ended up with these two. We just picked them off the shelf. These are the part numbers. I believe these are for a Dodge pickup truck, a Ram for the front. Don't quote me on that. I think that's what these are. Again, I just picked it off the shelf and we'll show you what they look like. I mocked it up on the car. So let's go back in the car now. Alright, so we took the banjo bolt out of here. Then we put this brake line we got from the Duralast brake lines. And it looks like we could just route it like this. We're gonna make a copper nickel line going up and over the axle tube. And it's gonna meet over here. This is the stock center brake line. It's going to be over here somewhere. And this is the other side, the other brake hose, the Dodge Ram brake hose. It's going to go like this. And I'm just going to zip tie it to the axle tube. So it looks something like this. I'm going to make a small little line here. I'm going to measure to make a small little line to connect that. And then make a big line going over to the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and make this small line here first. I'm going to cut that copper nickel line and flare it. Okay, so I measured a little strip over there we need. It's about 3 inches. I'm going to go a little bit, I'll go probably a little more, 3 1/4. So probably up to there. So I'm going to cut that there. Then flare the ends. 45 degrees. Double flare it. Go slow with this. The next thing I like to do here is I like to put a small little screwdriver just to ream the hole a little bit. Just like that. Same thing on the other side. Then just put sandpaper on the bench here. Just roll it over the sandpaper a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and flare this. In case you guys are interested, this is the tool I'm using by TGR. It's HT-1600. It does single bubble and double flares. I'm going to use a 3/16 45 degree end over here. So put that die in there. Just like that. It can stick out a little bit. Lock it in place and go to operation 0. It's called first. And what that does is, let me tighten this down a little bit. Operation 0 flattens it and puts it exactly where it needs to be. Now you can tighten this down all the way. So you're good. Then operation 1 for 3/16. Operation 1, 3/16 is this one. You put that in there. That's the bubble flare. And now to flare it for that double flare, it's operation 2, 3/16. That's how that came out. It's a nice flare. Now put the nuts on. Don't forget the nuts. And now do the same thing on this side. That should be good. It's perfect. And the last step here is blow this out with some compressed air. And you're good. Okay, now put this line over here. I already put it in on the T block over here, and this goes on a stock location over here. So this is pretty much done over here. We're just going to zip tie this in place, and now I'm just going to do the same procedure on the other side. I'm just going to make a copper line for the other side over here. Alright, so I zip tied these just to mock them up, and the line's going to go somewhat like this. This is very easy to bend by hand, so I highly suggest getting copper nickel, plus it doesn't rust. So, and I'm just going to go straight in and there. So I'm going to cut it right there, and I'm going to make another line. Alright, now I made the line. Just thread it in here. And now that's threaded on both sides. You can go ahead and finesse this. It's exactly how you want it. So, something like that it's going to look like. All right, so the rubber lines where I'm gonna zip tie them on the axle tube. I just cut a piece of rubber 3/8 hose, then I'm gonna zip tie it there. So as you can see here, I'm already almost done cutting this one, and I'm gonna put it on the other side. All right, so I'm gonna tighten everything down. I'm gonna start by tightening down this center rear hose. It's good. Okay. And everything's tightened down. Alright, now bleeding the brakes. I do a video on how to do this, so I'm going to put the link in the description below. But real quick, there's somebody inside. He's going to pump it twice. He's going to hold it. I'm going to crack this open, the bleeder screw, and let all the air bubbles out. Then tighten it back down. Then repeat the procedure. Also, I'm going to have somebody by the master cylinder to make sure it doesn't run dry. So we did a little bit already here. Pump it twice and hold.
Okay.
You got it, camera girl? Alright, now I'm going to open this. And it looks like all the air is out. So I think we're good on this one. I'm just going to do the other one. And also, we're going to check for leaks all around. Everything that we tightened down before, check it for leaks. Alright, so I had my lovely assistant Brianna inside the car, slam on the brakes a couple of times, and there are no leaks anywhere. And these brake hoses actually work pretty nicely. Alright, now the vent tube, we'll put a 3/8 hose on here. Just push it on there, just like that. And we're just going to zip tie it up here. This doesn't have to be this big, but that's how the customer wants it, so I'm trying to make him happy, or her happy.
Yeah.
And we're good. Now to measure for the drive shaft. The car is down, it's on wooden blocks, it's on its weight. We measure from the tail shaft face over there to the front of this yoke. So it's 54 1/8. Call your drive shaft to see how they want you to measure it, because usually they have different ways of measuring this. So we're going to go ahead and send this drive shaft out. One thing also to note here, we're going to tell the drive shaft shop that this is 1350 yoke back here, so we need a 1350 U-joint with a T56 slip-on yoke. Alright, so this kit comes with this and this. They want you to put this in the middle of the car. The two lines go through here, then the ends go through here, and you tighten these down. And you could use this in the middle of the car. We're not going to use this. We're going to use as much stock stuff as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this, cleave this on the end of where the caliper is. But we're going to take this apart here. So the first thing we're going to do is take this off. And we're also going to mock this up on the car because we've got to cut the cable and this. So I'm going to show all that. Now over here, what we're going to do is we're going to put this end in through here. That goes on the caliper. Now the other end of this goes in here. Alright, now that this is in here, we're going to mock this up on the car and see where it goes. We need to cut this black sheathing over here. Alright, so this is going to go here and just put the nut on here. Tighten that down. This doesn't have to be on yet. We're just cutting the outside sheath first. Alright, so we put the tire on just so we can clear it. I'm going to make some slacking here. I'll pull it towards the spring a little bit, just so we are ready if we put wider tires back here, if we take it to the track. So it's going to be over there somewhere. So what I want to do is cut it over here. So I'm just going to mark it right here for now. Alright, so now I'm just going to take this off and cut the sheathing. Take the cable off from inside and cut this right here. Okay, now I'm going to use a pair of cable cutters. I'm going to go a little longer than where I want it to be, just a tad. Just so if this screws up somehow, I still have some more meat over here to mess with. So go ahead and cut that over there. And that's how it came out. You can always put oil in there if you want to open up the hole a little bit. This is plastic in there, so I don't recommend using a cutoff wheel. It might melt it. So that's the best option. Okay, now I put the cable back in the sheath. Now over here, the clevis goes onto this bracket over here. It goes onto that hook over there. That's for the e-brake. And now on the other end, just tighten it down again. Alright, so I marked up where the cable is going to sit, and I pulled the stock bracket forward, towards the rear I mean, and I'm going to mark it over here where I want to cut this cable. So I'll probably cut it right there. Now we're going to use these stops over here. You go to Home Depot, they have them over there. The cable is 1/8 inch, so I'm going to cut one of these out. And I'll put this end in. Leave that there for now, and I'm going to cut this over here. Alright, put some black tape there, and now cut away. Alright, also I want to keep in mind there's a ferrule down here. We're going to actually bring this up later and leave it up there. Maybe crimp it down a little bit on top just to hold in place. And now I'm going to crimp this stop at the end over here with this tool, this crimping tool. I'm going to put a link in the description below where to get this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Lower this down on the crimp and whack it like it owes you money. You got one side, turn it over 180 degrees and do the other side. Whoa! And that's on there, baby. So this ferrule is sliding back and forth on this sheathing. I just wanted to tighten up a little bit. I'm just give some love taps. And I think it's on there. Alright, so this is the finished product. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the car now. Put this through there. Put this through here. Tighten her down. Put the clevis in. That's hooked up there. Now to put this in this bracket. We'll leave that there. I'm going to pull the cable and put a little clamp over here. So hammering down this ferrule didn't do much, I noticed when I was putting this in. So I'm just going to crimp this down even further with some heavy duty crimpers. Alright, I'll put one crimp over here. Like that, and one crimp over here. So that should be good now. Alright, so there's a hole here from the factory. I'm going to use this bracket that they give me in the kit. I'm going to put a bolt through it and a nut on top. So I have my lovely assistant here holding this cable taut, and I'm going to go ahead and put this in. I'm also going to put 3 washers to act like shims to space this out exactly where we need it. Put it through the hole. Get it in! Get it in! Yeah! Excuse my camera girl. And that's good. Alright, now we're going to push the e-brake down in the car. Now come over here. Test it, and it's good. Also test it on this side. And we're good. Now let go of the e-brake. And now we have no brakes again. And that's how you do the e-brake cable. And we're all ready with the e-brake cable now. So we're using Valvoline 80/90 gear oil in the back. For street driving you use 2 to 3 quarts. So we're just going to fill it up 2 to 3 quarts. So final piece of the puzzle, the drive shaft. Finally got it back to the drive shaft shop. And go ahead and install that. She's in! Alright, so the drive shaft was hitting the exhaust while the rear end was hanging. So we just put the car on blocks right now, and this drive shaft should go in. There you go. And we're going to put the U-bolt supplied in the kit. We might have to put the car back up in the air just to tighten those down. Go ahead and put those in. Alright, now I stick a pry bar on there to tighten this down. Make sure you get the same amount of threads sticking out on each side of that nut. Another thing over here, make sure the transmission is in neutral so you can turn this drive shaft. And if the car is in the air at this point, obviously, you can turn the drive shaft. So we tighten both sides. One more thing I want to say over here is if this isn't seat right, you can lightly tap this with a hammer to make it sit right. That's how it's supposed to sit. This lip over here should be on the outside part of this U-joint, and the same thing on the other side. So this drive shaft is in. Last thing I want to mention is I'm also putting some Monster Teflon tape on these pipe plugs. We also put on the drain bolt underneath it. It doesn't hurt to put this on here so you prevent any leaks. So you have to go with the threads when you put this on. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this back on. And we're good with the rear end. And that's good. And the other one I was talking about was the drain hole over here. Alright, so we're all done here. We're going to take it for a spin. Make sure when you put it on the ground everything clears. This is what it looks like. And the e-brake cable clears over here. One thing I want to mention about this universal brake cable, you don't have to really go crazy crimping this if there's no bend in the cable. So I just want to add that in there. The reason why I crimped this is because there's a bend, and if you want to pull on the e-brake, it wants to straighten out this cable. Alright, so we're good. Let's go for a test drive. Alright, so we've been driving now for about 15-20 minutes. We're going to go let the car cool down and then drive around again. So you pretty much need like one heat cycle of that and it should be good to break it in. We don't hear any noises, no whining from the rear, no clunking, no nothing. So everything is great. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to our channel, like me and share me. See ya!